Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to share with you a fantastic game played by legendary Indian chess grandmaster Viswanathan Anand. Actually, this is one of the best games ever played by Anand, and every chess player should know about it. In this game, Anand is playing with the white pieces and his opponent is French chess grandmaster Lautier. The game was played in 1997 in Biel, which is a town in Switzerland. Anand with white pieces opened up with e4, to which Joel responded with Scandinavian defense d5. Here is what Anand writes. I don't recall Joel ever having played this before, but he hadn't competed at all since Monaco in April, so I assumed this was an opening he had prepared during the intervening 3 months. He takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c3, queen a5, d4, knight f6, knight f3, c6, and bishop c4. Anand writes, nowadays knight e5 is more popular, but during my preparations for the World Championship, I noticed that the lines with bishop c4 were very dangerous for black to navigate. Since Joel didn't have a great deal of experience with the Scandinavian, I decided to test him in this critical variation. So in our game we have bishop c4 by Anand, bishop f5, knight e5, white is putting his knight on a central square, and after e6 is starting a pawn push on the king side, g4. White's approach is very aggressive and black has to be very careful, h4, knight b d7. Well, other alternative is bishop b4, attacking the knight on c3, but white can repel black's attack without much efforts. White can answer with bishop d2, and if knight e4 then f3. And white is doing great, no problem at all. In our game after h4 we have knight b d7. Anand writes, it was after this game that people started to look at knight b d7 more seriously. By offering the exchange of knights, black wants to get rid of this active knight as soon as possible. Knight takes d7 followed, knight takes d7, h4, bishop e4, and rook h3. Other alternatives are rook g1 or castling kingside, but in our game we have rook h3, and later we will see that this rook on the third rank can be very useful. Here comes bishop g2 by Joel, which is a nice division took. Now if rook g3, then after moving back the bishop, at some point later black can develop his kingside knight with a tempo by attacking white rook. That's why Anand put his rook on e3, knight b6, and bishop d3. Anand writes, I found this at the board and therefore changed my mind about rook g3 on move 13 and went for rook e3, knight d5, and f3. Anand writes, the point, white is willing to jettison a few pawns and or the exchange, but snares the bishop on g2, and yes, if we have a look at the board, black bishop is trapped in white's camp and is endangered. Now if black accepts the exchange sacrifice, then this gives white a huge compensation. After bishop takes e3, black has a beautiful bishop a3 move with the idea of weakening this knight. Now if b takes a3, then black can first play bishop takes f3, trying to lure away the queen, but after queen d2, black can play bishop takes g4, and yes, even in this case, white is doing great, but I have to tell you that after bishop a3, white is not forced to capture, can play bishop c1, and yeah, this is even better for white. If bishop b4, then king f2, and then queen h1, yeah, black is in trouble. This is one of the possible lines that can arise. And then bishop e3, followed by h6. At least white has an advantage of 2 pawns. Let's go back, but in our game after f3, instead of knight takes e3, we have bishop b4 by Joel, and a strong response by Anand, king f2. He's not only unpinning the knight, but is also attacking the bishop on g2. Bishop takes c3. Well, if knight takes c3, then after b takes c3, bishop takes c3, white can play rook b1. If bishop takes d4, then king takes g2. Again, this line favors white. In our game after king f2, we have bishop takes c3 and b takes c3. Now if knight takes c3, then this steps into a very unpleasant pin. That's why black recaptured with a queen and rook b1. Here black played queen takes d4, but let's take a look at other continuations as well. What if bishop takes f3, then simply queen takes f3. If queen takes d4, then rook takes b7. Or after rook b1, if knight takes e3, then bishop takes e3. Yes, this is even worse for black. Black can't even touch the pawn on d4. In our game, after rook b1, we have queen takes d4, and there it goes. White rook is penetrating the 7th rank. Rook d8. And a powerful move by Anand h6. This is the start of a brilliant combination. This pawn is not only weakening black's king side, but also in the upcoming lines, this pawn on h6 can be very useful. G takes h6. Black accepted the pawn sacrifice, but let's take a look at other continuations as well. What if, for example, knight takes e3? Then after bishop takes e3, if queen e5, then white can play h takes g7, rook g8, then queen d2. If rook takes g7, then king takes g2. If h5, then g5, stopping any possible counterplay on the king side. Or after h6, if g6, then white can go for a devastating queen sacrifice. If queen takes d1, then rook takes e6 check is coming. And then rook takes f7, and then rook g7. Now, can you understand how useful is this pawn on h6? It's supporting the rook. If king f8, then this time the bishop is joining the attack. This is insane, guys. The way white pieces are waiting for their turn to attack is just amazing. And then black king is getting checkmated. In our game after h6, we have g takes h6. But anyways, like in the previous line, we have that fantastic queen sacrifice, and in here Anand played bishop g6. White is sacrificing his queen, but this pin is going to play a very important role. And also, once the rook is joining the party, this dark squared bishop can join the attack both from h6 or from a3. Now if queen f6, then bishop takes f7 check is coming, and yeah, this is a total destruction. And then queen takes d8, and then bishop takes e3. Now if you move your bishop, then rook takes a7, and then rook takes h7. This is totally winning. Or after bishop g6, if queen takes d1, then there comes the rook, king f8, and then the bishop is coming, and then white is announcing a very brutal checkmate. Or after bishop g6, if knight takes e3, then this time bishop takes f7 can be played. If king f8, then queen takes d4. Yeah, and then bishop takes e3. The game is over. Let's go back. In our game after bishop g6, we have knight e7 and queen takes d4. Rook takes d4, rook d3. Of course, even this simple bishop d3 is winning, but Anand chooses the strongest continuation. He's offering the exchange of rooks. Now if rook takes d3, then after bishop takes d3, not only black bishop is hanging, but also there is a rook b8 threat. That's why after rook d3, black decided to move back his rook on d8. But after rook takes d8 check, king takes d8, bishop d3, finally capitulated. Still, this bishop on g2 is hanging, and if you make a move with a light squared bishop, then white can play bishop b2, attack black rook, and then can pin the knight. And suddenly black is finding himself in a position of zugzwang, and black will soon suffer heavy losses. Yeah, black's position is totally demoralized, and victory is just a matter of moves. That's why after bishop d3, resignation followed. A very impressive game by Viswanathan Anand, which I hope that you enjoyed greatly. In the end, a chess puzzle for you, where the task is to find the winning move for black. It's black to move, and I will wait for your answers in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Here are more suggestions for you. Feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care.